Welcome back to the second session of 3 with me, Chris from Wild Elements, on the science of flight. In the last session we looked at the different types of planes and the forces that govern flight. Well, for today's session we are going to look at birds, the adaptations that they have through evolution that enable them to fly. The first activity in your workbook will be testing your knowledge on birds. So the question is, can this bird fly or can it not fly? And also, do you know the name of these birds? You can find the answer at the very back of your workbook, but please try to answer them without peeking. The second activity in your workbook is an experiment. This experiment will be to try and illustrate how birds' bones are actually very strong. But first, before we reach that point, let's take a look at some of the actual adaptations that birds have evolved that enable them to fly. And the final activity on your workbook is to design a bird. So first off, what are the physical features that birds have evolved that enable them to fly? In your workbook, you will find each of these physical features addressed. Birds are lightweight. This helps reduce the effect gravity has on them. Flying birds also have a very large breastbone in comparison to the rest of the body. This is essential for the muscles that they need for flight, whereas if you think of a human, we have only a very small breastbone. That's why we are incapable of flight. Even inventors who have tried to design gliders and planes where it involves humans flapping their arms still hasn't worked because there just is not enough muscle for that to happen. However, for birds it is different. And the last physical feature that I want to highlight with you is that birds have hollow bones. This helps in reducing the weight of the overall animal. However, hollow bones doesn't mean that they are brittle and break easily. Another attribute to the hollow bones is that they also help with the lungs. In the bones they have what are known as special air sacs that helps with the bird's breathing. This enables them to fly higher, and it's this attribute I would like to demonstrate for our experiment. For this experiment, what you will need is a paper plate, some sticky tape, 3 pieces of paper. You will be given some pebbles that will act as weight. What you first need to do is get your piece of paper and roll it into a tube like so. Once you have created your tube, you then need to stick it down with some sticky tape. That's like that. Make sure it's straight. There we go. You then need to make another 2 with the other 2 pieces of paper. When you have made all 3 of your tubes, you then need to stick them to the underside of your paper plate, because these will then be acting as stilts for your plate. All you need to do now is add weight to your structure. It's a bit breezy out here, so I'm going to have to hold this to stop it from blowing away for a minute, but that shouldn't affect the actual weight going on top. The tubes represent the bones of birds that can fly. As you can see, even though they are hollow, it still doesn't necessarily mean that they are weak. how many stones do you think we could get on here? So for your design, please think about the different attributes that you will discover through your workbook on the things that enable a bird to fly. Do you want big wings, so the bird is able to fly for long periods of time without having to flap its wings? Do you want it to be a fast bird that can capture other birds like predators? Or do you want it to be just a slow bird that just plods along and gets to where it needs to be? Today's session, we have looked at the physical features that enable birds to fly. In the next session, we will be looking at what is called aerodynamics. Aerodynamics is very important to help develop aircraft that are able to fly. Also, we will be making paper aeroplanes and making different designs of aeroplanes to see which fly further and which don't fly at all.